A Polaroid appears on a Florida sidewalk. Two figures bound and gagged. One looks hauntingly familiar, a young girl who vanished months earlier in New Mexico. Who captured her, and why? The world was about to discover a chilling story that would defy explanation. It was September 28, 1988. Tara Calico, 19 years old, stepped out of her home in Belen, New Mexico, under a sky pale with early morning sunlight. The town was still waking, the streets quiet, except for the occasional sound of a car door shutting or a dog barking in the distance. She mounted her bicycle, her backpack snug on her shoulders, and pedaled toward Highway 47. The landscape stretched endlessly, fields of desert grass, occasional mesquite trees, the low red hills rising like silent sentinels in the distance. The wind whispered through the open plain, rustling dry grass, as if the earth itself were holding its breath. Tara's ride seemed ordinary routine, the kind of journey a teenager might take to clear her mind. But that morning would mark the beginning of a mystery that would confound investigators, haunt a town, and echo across decades. Neighbors later recounted seeing her pass by familiar roads. A boy riding alongside a dog, a woman walking to the market, each had fleeting glimpses of her. A flash of auburn hair, a glint of sunlight on chrome handlebars. No one could have known these moments would be the last anyone would see her. By noon, anxiety had begun to set in. Tara had not returned. Her mother called repeatedly, her voice trembling, echoing down empty streets. Friends mounted their own search, scanning the familiar paths of Highway 47. Looking for anything out of place, a dropped water bottle, a bicycle lying on its side, a backpack abandoned in the grass. Nothing. The town, a small community where everyone knew one another, felt the first stirrings of dread. Days became weeks. Each new lead brought hope, then disappointment. Investigators searched the area systematically. Fields dry, washes, creek beds. Helicopters combed the landscape. Dogs were brought in to track her scent. Yet Tara seemed to have vanished into thin air. Reports classified it as a singular disappearance, an anomaly that offered no clues, no traces, no footprints that could explain where she had gone. Months passed, the season's shifting leaves turning golden and then falling. On June 15, 1989, nearly 9 months after Tara disappeared, a woman in St. Joe, Florida, stumbled upon a Polaroid outside a small grocery store's parking lot. The photograph was immediate in its horror, a girl and a boy bound and gagged, their eyes wide with fear, staring at something unseen. The girl's expression was familiar, haunting. Could it be her? The photograph sparked national attention. Police and media outlets examined the Polaroid meticulously. Every detail was scrutinized, the background, the lighting, the positioning of the children, even the shadows that crept across the image. Analysts attempted to date the photograph, to trace the film, to identify the boy beside Tara. Nothing definitive emerged. Witnesses who had seen Tara along Highway 47 recalled her smiling, laughing, unaware that her fate would become one of the most enduring mysteries of the decade. Local newspapers chronicled the story in vivid detail. Headlines read, "Missing teen 9 months later, chilling Polaroid surfaces. Highway 47's shadow, another unsolved mystery," and "Bound in silence, the Tara Calico photograph." Each article offered fragments of the truth, yet collectively they built a mosaic of fear, uncertainty, and unanswered questions. Community members reported subtle anomalies in the days following the discovery. Strange lights along the highway at night, fleeting shadows that moved without origin, whispers carried on the wind. Children claimed to see figures standing silently at the edges of fields, only to vanish when approached. Some described feeling watched, as if the very landscape were alive, aware of the tragedy it had witnessed. The combination of factual disappearance and folkloric whispers gave rise to a dual narrative: the hard-edged reality of law enforcement's investigation and the spectral, haunting folklore that enveloped the area. Highway 47 was no longer just a road, it was a symbol, a corridor where reality and myth blurred, where the mundane and the supernatural intersected. This tension between fact and folklore would shape every subsequent investigation, every newspaper article, and every whispered tale in Belen, New Mexico, and beyond. Tara Calico's story was no longer just her own, it had become a collective memory, a cautionary tale etched into the consciousness of the community, echoing with unanswered questions and the silent, cold stare of a Polaroid camera. After Tara Calico disappeared on the morning of September 28, 1988, law enforcement immediately classified the case as a missing person investigation, though the unusual circumstances suggested a singular disappearance of exceptional concern. The initial report filed by the Valencia County Sheriff's Office noted the following. Tara, 19 years old, left her home on a Sunday morning at approximately 9:15 a.m., intending to ride her bicycle to a friend's house near Highway 47. She was wearing a blue denim jacket, white t-shirt, and dark jeans, her bicycle red with chrome handlebars. Family members stated that she took no money, no purse, and her personal cell phone, if she had one at the time, was not with her. This small but critical detail would later complicate tracing her movements. Timeline, September 28, 1988. 9:15 a.m. Tara departs home. Witnesses see her cycling past the intersection of Main Street and First Avenue. No signs of distress reported. 9:35 a.m. Passing motorists recall seeing a young woman riding alone along Highway 47, a stretch of road lined with sparse mesquite trees and open desert. Some note that her pace was steady, casual, almost carefree. 10:00 a.m. Family grows concerned as Tara does not arrive at her destination. Calls are made to friends, no contact is made. 11:00 a.m. Parents begin searching the local area on foot and by car. Roadside checks reveal no bicycle, no belongings, no disturbances. 2:00 p.m. Valencia County Sheriff's Office is officially notified. An official missing person report is filed listing Tara's height, weight, clothing, bicycle description, and known acquaintances. Investigators immediately canvassed the area. Canine units were deployed along likely routes, including side roads and trails adjacent to Highway 47. Helicopter surveillance was requested, but limited by budget constraints. Over the next several days, officers interviewed neighbors, shopkeepers, and passing travelers. No one reported seeing Tara beyond initial sightings. No abandoned personal items were discovered along her intended route. October, November 1980. The investigation expanded to surrounding counties. Detectives reviewed reports of strangers' suspicious vehicles and alleged abductions in rural New Mexico, but nothing connected directly to Tara. Phone records and local sightings were cross-referenced. Investigators noted that the lack of identification purse or money suggested either a planned disappearance or abduction. Both possibilities were treated seriously. December 1988, March 1989. Media coverage increases. Local and regional newspapers published detailed articles including Tara's photo, her last known location, and descriptions of her bicycle and clothing. Tips begin to arrive, though. Most are false leads or misidentifications. A few reports claimed to see a girl matching Tara's description in areas hundreds of miles away. None were substantiated. Authorities note discrepancies in witness statements. One driver recalled seeing a bicycle tipped over near a wash. Another insisted they saw Tara continue down the highway with no apparent distress. Contradictory details remained unresolved. April, May 1989. FBI consultation requested due to the possibility of interstate abduction. Profiles of known offenders with similar MO are reviewed. Physical searches intensify along Highway 47 and nearby desert washes. Drone technology was not available at the time. Reliance was on aerial photography and manual searches. The investigation documents suggest a pattern often found in abduction cases. Disappearance with no struggle, evident at point of departure, delayed discovery of evidence, and lack of identifiable suspects. June 15, 1989. The Polaroid discovery. A woman discovers a Polaroid at a parking lot outside a grocery store in St. Joe, Florida. The photograph depicts a young woman and a boy, both bound and gagged, their eyes wide with fear. The woman immediately contacts local law enforcement. Forensic analysis begins. The Polaroid is examined for fingerprints, film batch number, and chemical composition. Analysts confirm that the film likely developed in the months following Tara's disappearance, but cannot conclusively date the exposure or identify the boy. Law enforcement notes the following key details from the Polaroid. The girl's clothing is similar to what Tara wore when last seen, though the angle and quality make absolute identification impossible. Shadows in the background suggest the photograph was taken indoors, though no walls or windows are clearly visible. The boy remains unidentified. Investigators hypothesize he could be a local acquaintance or sibling of another missing child. No fingerprints or other trace evidence could link the photograph to a suspect. Contradictions and inconsistencies. Witnesses differ on Tara's last known location. Some report seeing her at the western end of Highway 47. others at the eastern stretch near the desert fringe. Reports of strange vehicles near the highway were inconsistent. No vehicle was ever positively identified or linked to her disappearance. The Polaroid raises further questions. How did it travel from New Mexico to Florida? The absence of a delivery method or suspect creates an unsolved anomaly. Statements from local residents conflicted. Some recalled seeing children playing near the highway on the day of Tara's disappearance, yet none could confirm seeing Tara in distress or interacting with anyone suspicious. Investigative notes. Sheriff's logs highlight repeated use of terms like singular disappearance, fate unknown, and unexplained occurrence. Internal memos note frustration with the lack of tangible evidence. Detectives repeatedly requested public assistance in identifying the boy in the Polaroid. Law enforcement documents reference ongoing rumors of other missing persons in similar rural highways across New Mexico and adjacent states, though no direct link was established. Summary of fact layer findings. Tara Calico disappeared September 28, 1988 during a bicycle ride along Highway 47. No immediate evidence of abduction, struggle, or foul play was found. Timeline of sightings is inconsistent with contradictions between witness reports. The Polaroid discovered June 15, 1989, depicts a girl matching Tara and an unidentified boy, both bound. Forensic examination cannot conclusively confirm identity or timeline. Investigative efforts spanned multiple states and months, yet yielded no arrests or definitive explanations. Multiple anomalies, contradictions, and unresolved questions remain central to the case, fueling both factual investigation and local folklore narratives. The combination of missing physical evidence, contradictory eyewitness reports, and the chilling Polaroid created one of the most confounding unsolved cases in American history, blurring the line between reality and speculation, fact and folklore. This was the foundation upon which the mystery would grow, setting the stage for the layers of supernatural and legend that would follow in P3, the folklore layer. Even as law enforcement pursued every possible lead, the small town of Belen, New Mexico, began to whisper of forces unseen. Highway 47, once a mundane route linking rural stretches of the state, had long carried a reputation among locals. For decades, tales had circulated of children vanishing along its path, of roused travelers feeling watched by unseen eyes, and of shadows that moved against the wind. These stories, dismissed for generations, suddenly took on new meaning in light of Tara Calico's disappearance. Residents recalled the subtle, inexplicable events leading up to her disappearance: lights flickering in the desert at odd hours, the sound of footsteps in areas known to be empty. A low, almost human whisper carried on the wind that seemed to call names. While investigators attributed these phenomena to imagination or stress, the community could not ignore the mounting pattern. Highway 47 was a place where reality felt thin, where the ordinary bent toward the extraordinary. In the months following Tara's disappearance, the Polaroid discovered in Florida added layers of supernatural speculation. Some locals claimed that the photograph was no ordinary evidence, but rather a spirit-bound image, a capture not of a living moment, but of a liminal space where the missing and the unseen intersected. The girl's wide eyes and the tense posture of the boy were described as too still, too aware, suggesting knowledge beyond the human realm. Elderly residents recalled similar visions, figures frozen in time, staring, never blinking, appearing to those who would later vanish themselves. Though unverified, these accounts fueled whispers, rumors, and local folklore. The desert around Highway 47 became a stage for imagined apparitions. Travelers reported seeing a young girl cycling along the highway at dawn, only to disappear when approached. Others recounted glimpses of shadowy figures darting across roadside washes, their forms indistinct, yet unmistakably human. Some claimed to hear the faint creak of a bicycle chain, or the metallic clink of a fallen water bottle in the night, with no source in sight. Stories of the girl in the blue denim jacket began circulating among children and teenagers, warning one another to stay away from certain stretches of the highway after dark. Superstition deepened with time. Some residents carried talismans or charms when traveling the area, believing that protective symbols might shield them from the same fate as Tara. Others recounted recurring dreams of bound figures, of being chased along desolate highways, or of seeing a Polaroid that captured a moment of inescapable horror. Even those who never encountered the photograph personally reported an uncanny sense of dread when the story was mentioned, as if the narrative itself carried a psychic weight, pulling imagination into belief. Folklore often merges fact with fear, and in Belen, the story of Tara Calico became inseparable from legend. Highway 47 was described as a liminal corridor, a threshold between the familiar world and something unknowable. Tales circulated of spectral riders, children, teenagers, sometimes adult figures vanishing into thin air, leaving behind only whispers and chilling photographs discovered far from the site. The repetition of these motifs, vanishing travelers, unexplainable Polaroids, shadow sightings, created a tapestry that merged real events with local myth, a storytelling device as old as the desert itself. Investigators privately acknowledged the tension between folklore and fact. Some dismissed the rumors as distractions, yet the intensity and frequency of witness accounts could not be entirely ignored. One officer recounted hearing reports from multiple independent sources of a girl cycling alone along the highway after dusk. Her image momentarily lit by passing headlights, only to vanish from sight instantly. Others described seeing a small boy running beside her, hands bound as if trapped in another dimension. Though officially unverified, these tales gained traction in local newspapers and radio stories, cementing the highway's reputation as a place where normal rules seemed suspended. Tales of spectral children were particularly prevalent. Residents spoke of small figures, appearing at the edge of fields, watching travelers silently, never approaching, yet leaving an undeniable impression. Often these figures were described as pale eyes, wide clothing, fluttering in impossible winds. Some claimed that these figures were connected to past disappearances, suggesting a cyclical pattern in which the missing return not to the world of the living, but as presences hovering on the periphery of human perception. Tara's Polaroid seemed to validate in the minds of some these long-held suspicions. Here was evidence of the missing trapped in a liminal, almost supernatural state. This folkloric layer expanded beyond mere sightings. Local storytellers incorporated Tara's disappearance into cautionary tales, teaching younger generations to respect the desert and its highways. Highway 47 became a conduit for storytelling, an intersection where reality and myth entwined. The narrative of the missing girl bound in a Polaroid, combined with the eerie consistency of shadow sightings, established a shared cultural memory. Even those skeptical of supernatural claims found themselves uneasy when traversing the highway at night, sensing the weight of history and legend pressing upon them. The blending of fact and folklore created a compelling motif. Highway 47 was no longer just asphalt and desert. It was a character in the story itself, a silent observer, a possible witness. The desert wind carried not only dust and sand, but whispers of vanished travelers. The scattered mesquite trees, the rising red hills, the open washes, they were all part of the narrative stage. Each shadow, each fleeting sound became evidence in the minds of locals, merging lived experience with imagination, until the story of Tara Calico existed simultaneously as a true case file and a living legend. Even outside Belen, the story resonated. Paranormal investigators and amateur sleuths traveled to the area, retracing Tara's supposed route. They reported unsettling coincidences misplaced. Bicycles, sudden temperature drops, equipment, malfunctions, and a persistent sense of being watched. Photographs taken at night sometimes captured unexplained lights or figures that disappeared upon inspection. Though these observations lacked verification, they contributed to the narrative fabric, reinforcing the belief that Highway 47 was a liminal space where ordinary understanding failed. For many, the Polaroid itself became symbolic, a talisman of mystery. The girl's wide-eyed stare, the boy's tense posture, the ambiguity of location and context all lent themselves to interpretations that blurred reality and legend. Did the photograph record a moment of abduction, or did it capture something beyond the physical world, an echo of forces unseen? The very ambiguity intensified the folklore layer, allowing storytellers to fill in the gaps with imagination and fear, crafting a narrative that enthralled and terrified simultaneously. By embedding Tara's disappearance into local folklore, the town transformed from a site of tragedy into a theater of narrative suspense. Highway 47 was no longer simply a stretch of road. It became a liminal corridor linking fact and fiction, memory and legend, life and absence. Shadows on the asphalt were no longer incidental. They were participants in a story still unfolding. The Polaroid served as both evidence and artifact, a tangible reminder that the unexplained had a place in the real world and that the line between human perception and supernatural suggestion could be dangerously thin. This folklore layer establishes the bridge to understanding the broader motif of unsolved disappearances across rural highways in the United States. The recurring patterns bound figures, sudden vanishings, unexplained photographs resonate far beyond Belen, hinting at a shared cultural unconscious that grapples with fear, absence, and the unknown. Tara Calico's case is both singular and archetypal, merging factual investigation with a legend that continues to haunt the desert, the highway, and the imagination of anyone who encounters the story. As the months turned into years, investigators and locals alike began to notice unsettling parallels beyond Belen. Tara Calico's disappearance and the Polaroid that surfaced months later were no longer viewed as isolated incidents. Across rural highways and desert stretches in the United States, a disturbing motif emerged: teenagers and young adults vanishing without trace, only to reappear sometimes indirectly through photographs, fleeting sightings, or objects left behind. In New Mexico, case files from surrounding counties detailed similar patterns. A young girl or boy last seen traveling alone, reported missing, and yet no immediate evidence of foul play could be found. Sometimes months or even years later, a photograph or witness account would surface depicting the missing individual in a situation that defied conventional explanation. The consistency of these incidents suggested a deeper pattern, a motif that law enforcement folklore enthusiasts and paranormal observers would later describe as the highway vanishings. The motif is clear: an innocent traveler, usually alone, disappears in broad daylight or early evening. Evidence is minimal, often non-existent. Then, inexplicable signs appear: a photograph, a trinket, a sighting that seem to contradict the reality of their disappearance. These signs are often disturbing, featuring bound individuals, wide eyes of terror, or frozen poses, suggesting awareness beyond the human. Investigators found themselves confronted with the same recurring contradictions as in Tara Calico's case: multiple witness statements conflicting no physical traces, and the presence of a symbolic or tangible artifact like the Polaroid that raised more questions than it answered. This motif resonates beyond individual incidents. Across rural America, from the stretches of Highway 47 to isolated roads in Texas, Arizona, and Florida, investigators have documented patterns in missing persons reports that echo Tara's case. Young travelers vanish inexplicably. Sightings or photographs appear in places far removed from the original location. Communities recount whispers, shadows, and a pervasive feeling of unease. While each case differs in details, the recurring elements create a thread connecting these incidents, suggesting either a chilling human pattern or a phenomenon that defies conventional understanding. In Belen, the motif reinforced the eerie folklore surrounding Highway 47. Locals spoke of the highway as a thin place where the ordinary laws of time and space seemed to waver. Travelers reported seeing fleeting figures at dawn or dusk shadows that moved against the wind, and glimpses of objects: a bicycle, a backpack suddenly appearing or disappearing without explanation. These observations were often anecdotal, yet the sheer volume of reports combined with the corroborating Polaroid made the motif impossible to ignore. Highway 47, once a mundane route, had become a stage upon which the recurrent pattern of disappearances unfolded, blending fact with the chilling aura of legend. Researchers studying missing persons began to classify such cases under a specific archetype: the sudden unexplained disappearance followed by ambiguous evidence. Tara's case fit this classification perfectly. Notably, the evidence her bicycle left unclaimed, her absence unaccounted for, and the Polaroid provided the motif's signature: disappearance, delayed revelation, and inexplicable documentation. Analysts remarked on the psychological impact of such patterns. Communities subjected to repeated vanishings experience a heightened sense of vulnerability with each incident, reinforcing the sense that the ordinary world can suddenly shift into one governed by unseen rules. The bridge between fact and folklore becomes evident in these recurring motifs. Every element of Tara's story: the sudden disappearance, the Polaroid, the contradictory witness statements, mirrors reports in other regions. Each event acts as both an anchor to reality and a gateway to speculation. Could there be a network of abductions stretching across states, or is the phenomenon something far less tangible, something that operates outside the scope of human comprehension? The unanswered questions reinforce the narrative, drawing investigators, journalists, and folklore enthusiasts alike into a shared engagement with the mystery. Communities familiar with these motifs often develop coping mechanisms, talismans, altered travel habits, and cautionary tales passed from parent to child. Highway 47 became a site of ritualized avoidance, a road where the stories of previous disappearances shaped behavior. Teenagers were warned not to ride alone at dawn or dusk. Parents spoke in hushed tones of the Polaroid, and the wide eyes it captured embedding a cultural memory intertwined with caution and awe. The motif thus becomes both a psychological framework for interpreting the world and a narrative device linking individual cases across time and space. In examining Tara Calico's disappearance through the lens of these motifs, patterns emerge not only in behavior and geography, but in symbolic representation. The Polaroid, a frozen image of terror, serves as the recurring artifact that signifies the intersection of reality and legend. It mirrors reports in other disappearances. A photograph, a scrap of evidence, a fleeting vision, all encapsulating the fear, uncertainty, and supernatural speculation that accompanies such events. The motif is now clear: disappearance, delayed revelation, and the haunting artifact repeated across the American landscape link individual tragedies into a narrative both factual and folkloric. As the bridge between Tara's story and broader patterns solidifies, the narrative prepares for its climax. The motif, bound unseen, captured in an artifact, sets the stage for examining the Polaroid and related evidence in unparalleled detail. The audience is led to confront the haunting question: is this simply a tragic human occurrence, or is there a larger, incomprehensible force at play? The line between documented fact and folklore blurs, leaving the viewer suspended in anticipation of the next revelation, the climax. In this way, the bridge serves not only to contextualize Tara Calico's disappearance within a larger framework, but also to elevate the story from a singular unsolved case to an archetype of American mystery. It links fact, folklore, and pattern recognition, compelling the audience to consider both empirical evidence and the psychological weight of legend. The motifs established here, sudden disappearance, delayed revelation, inexplicable artifacts, will underpin the forthcoming examination of evidence. The Polaroid's chilling details and the contradictions that define the climax. The Polaroid sat under the fluorescent lights of the Florida Evidence Room, an innocuous square of white-bordered film, yet it radiated an aura of unease. Investigators handled it with gloves, careful not to disturb the image. At first glance, it seemed simple: a young girl and a boy bound and gagged staring into the camera. But upon closer inspection, every detail screamed mystery, every shadow whispered ambiguity, and every line of the photograph seemed to stretch time itself. The girl's clothing was strikingly similar to what Tara had worn on the morning she disappeared: a blue denim jacket, white t-shirt, dark pants. Her hair, partially obscured by the low lighting, fell around her shoulders in loose strands. The boy, younger by several years, wore a plain white shirt and dark pants, hands bound behind him. Their gags were simple but precise, almost ritualistic. Their wide-eyed stare suggested awareness, comprehension of their predicament. It was as if the camera captured not just a moment, but a consciousness frozen in terror. Forensic teams attempted to trace the origins of the Polaroid. The film's batch was identified as having been manufactured months prior, but the precise development date could not be determined. Fingerprints were inconclusive. No DNA could be reliably extracted. Experts analyzed the shadows and background, attempting to ascertain whether the image was staged indoors or outdoors. Conflicting evidence emerged. Some shadows suggested sunlight filtering through blinds, others suggested artificial light. No walls or windows were definitively visible. It was as if the photograph existed in a liminal space, neither fully indoor nor outdoor, a suspended environment beyond easy comprehension. Investigators debated the photograph's authenticity. Could it have been staged by a hoaxer? Yet the details were too consistent with Tara's disappearance: the timing, the clothing, the geographic feasibility of the image appearing months later in Florida. Moreover, the boy's presence complicated matters. Who was he? Could he have been another missing child? Every lead hit a dead end. The contradictions were maddening. Eyewitness accounts of Tara's last known location conflicted, some reporting the western stretch of Highway 47, others the eastern desert fringe. Reports of strange vehicles varied. Some described a dark sedan, others a pickup truck with no license plate. None were verified. The psychological weight of the Polaroid was palpable. Detectives and journalists alike reported feeling a creeping unease when viewing the image. The girl's eyes seemed to follow the observer. The boy's posture suggested fear beyond his years. Even without sound, the image conveyed terror with a clarity that defied explanation. Some law enforcement personnel noted sleepless nights, dreams of the children frozen in fear, a recurring mental image that refused to dissipate. The Polaroid was not merely evidence. It was a psychological artifact imposing itself upon anyone who dared to study it. Attempts to locate the boy yielded nothing. Investigators cross-referenced missing children, reports from across Florida and surrounding states. No match could be found. Some suggested he may have been a local child, perhaps an acquaintance of Tara's, or a child previously reported missing elsewhere. Yet all searches ended in frustration. This unidentifiable presence reinforced the photograph's eerie power. It was not just a record of Tara Calico, it was a puzzle piece that refused to fit into any known reality. Further contradictions emerged in witness statements. Some locals claimed seeing Tara in the days following her disappearance riding along Highway 47, her bicycle still intact. Others recalled glimpsing her in towns hundreds of miles away, sometimes accompanied by a man, sometimes alone. No verifiable evidence supported these accounts, yet the consistency of certain descriptive elements, the denim jacket, her hairstyle, the bicycle's red frame suggested a potential truth obscured by time and memory. Each conflicting report only deepened the mystery, adding layers of uncertainty and suspicion. Investigative reports also highlighted items that vanished inexplicably. Tara's bicycle had never been recovered. Personal belongings, including her wallet and small backpack, were never found. Search teams noted impressions in the dirt that disappeared under scrutiny, suggesting either tampering or a natural erasure. In essence, every tangible lead dissolved into ambiguity, leaving only the Polaroid as a focal point of both evidence and enigma. The broader psychological impact on the community cannot be overstated. Families altered routines, teenagers avoided solitary rides along the highway, and parents recounted warnings passed down to their children. Do not ride alone. Be wary of the shadows. The Polaroid had become a touchstone of fear, a visual anchor for the unknown. It blurred the line between reality and myth-fact and folklore, imprinting itself on the collective imagination of the region. Experts debated the significance of the Polaroid's anomalies. Some suggested photographic manipulation, intentional staging, or delayed posting to a distant location. Others posited that the image might capture something beyond ordinary experience, a glimpse into a phenomenon not yet understood. Regardless, the photograph was central to the case. It crystallized the contradictions, the missing evidence, and the supernatural undertones into a single chilling tableau. Ultimately, the climax of the Tara Calico story resides in the tension between known facts and unexplainable anomalies. The Polaroid embodies this tension. It is at once concrete and intangible, a literal representation of Tara's disappearance, and a symbolic gateway into the unknown. Every detail, the girl's wide eyes, the boy's tense posture, the ambiguous background, the unexplained journey from New Mexico to Florida, drives the narrative to a peak of suspense and horror. The audience is confronted with the question, what happened to Tara Calico? Was she a victim of human malice, or was she caught in circumstances beyond comprehension? And the Polaroid, silent yet vivid, refuses to provide answers. The climax sets the stage for the final layers of the narrative, the outro, and the concluding reflections. The story teeters between reality and legend, between unresolved fact and folklore, compelling the viewer to wrestle with their own understanding of what is possible. It is a moment designed to leave the audience suspended on the edge of belief and fear, fully immersed in the chilling enigma that is Tara Calico and the Polaroid. Years have passed since Tara Calico vanished on that quiet September morning in 1988, yet the questions remain unrelenting, echoing across time and space. Where did she go? Who took her? And what, if anything, did that Polaroid truly capture? Highway 47 remains unchanged yet transformed. The asphalt stretches into the horizon, flanked by desert and mesquite, silent witnesses to a disappearance that continues to haunt the landscape. Travelers passing the road speak of unease, a sensation that unseen eyes follow them, and of shadows that shift in impossible ways. To some, these sensations are natural, wind-light imagination, but to others they are a chilling reminder of the unknown forces that may dwell within ordinary spaces. Local residents continue to recount stories, embellishing, elaborating, and passing on the narrative of Tara Calico. The tale has woven itself into the fabric of the community, becoming both legend and cautionary tale. Parents warn children against solitary rides along the highway. And the image of the Polaroid, two figures bound and gagged, serves as a psychological anchor for collective fear. The photograph is more than evidence. It has become a symbol of the mystery, a mirror reflecting human anxiety about the unseen and the unresolved. Investigators remain divided. Some maintain that Tara was the victim of a human perpetrator, yet no leads, arrests, or evidence have ever fully substantiated this theory. Others speculate that the pattern of disappearances, the repeated motifs, and the unsettling nature of the Polaroid suggest phenomena beyond conventional explanation. Perhaps it is coincidence, misinterpretation, or something inexplicable operating outside the bounds of ordinary understanding. Each theory is contested, each conclusion partial, leaving the truth elusive and tantalizingly out of reach. The Polaroid itself remains a chilling artifact. Stored in evidence rooms, examined repeatedly by forensic teams, it continues to defy interpretation. Its ambiguity backgrounds that refuse to reveal location lighting, that suggests both natural and artificial sources expressions, that are alive yet frozen, maintains a sense of psychological unease. Anyone who studies the image reports an almost visceral reaction. The girl's eyes seem to follow the viewer. The boy's tense posture evokes an empathy and fear simultaneously, and the silence within the frame amplifies the dread. This enduring ambiguity forms the core of the narrative's lasting impact. It is not merely Tara's disappearance that captivates the imagination, but the interplay between fact and folklore, certainty and speculation. The highway, the Polaroid, and the vanished girl have merged into a living story, a legend that evolves with each retelling. For some, the story functions as folklore, a moral cautioning against solitary travel, against ignoring the signs of danger. For others, it is a haunting example of unresolved human tragedy, amplified by artifacts that speak louder than words. In the minds of investigators and enthusiasts alike, the motif extends further. Highway 47 becomes a metaphor for thresholds between known and unknown, safety and peril, life and disappearance. The physical landscape serves as a backdrop for psychological exploration, each twist in the tale echoing the unresolved tensions between perception, memory, and reality. Tara's story exemplifies this motif perfectly, a simple journey transformed into a complex narrative that intertwines physical evidence with spectral narrative uncertainty, with folklore bulked with myth. Despite the decades that have passed, the highway and the Polaroid continue to assert their presence. Researchers, writers, and paranormal enthusiasts revisit the case, seeking patterns, analyzing details, and re-examining old evidence with new technologies. Social media and online communities have further amplified the story, merging anecdotal accounts with documented facts, blurring the lines between history and legend, observation and imagination. The psychological impact persists. Communities affected by similar disappearances report long-term unease, hypervigilance, and rituals aimed at protecting the young. The image of Tara and the boy bound and gagged serves as both warning and enigma, a narrative device that continues to shape perceptions of safety, trust, and the unknown. The photograph, the highway, the folklore, they converge into a layered narrative, inviting reflection, speculation, and dread. Ultimately, Tara Calico's story resists closure. The facts are few. The interpretations are many. Each element, timeline inconsistencies, unexplained evidence, eyewitness contradictions, the haunting Polaroid fuels continued fascination and fear. The narrative does not conclude, it evolves, each retelling, adding nuance, each observation deepening the mystery. In this sense, the story is alive, perpetually unsettled, a testament to the enduring power of the unexplained. The outro leaves the audience suspended, lingering in the shadow of uncertainty. The unanswered questions, the ambiguity of evidence, and the folklore surrounding Highway 47 converge to produce a final effect: awe, fear, and fascination. Tara Calico remains both a person and a symbol, a historical fact and a legend, a missing girl whose story continues to unfold in the collective imagination. This leads naturally into reflection and action. How does one respond to unresolved mysteries? How do communities cope with the unknown? And most importantly, how do viewers engage with these stories in ways that honor the missing while exploring the profound psychological and cultural effects of absence and ambiguity? Tara Calico's story does not end here. The Polaroid remains frozen in time, haunting evidence of a mystery that has never been solved. Highway 47 stretches quietly across the New Mexico desert, ordinary in appearance yet imbued with decades of unanswered questions, whispered warnings, and shadows that seem to move with their own intention. The girl's wide-eyed stare, the boy's tense posture, the ambiguous background, they linger in memory, compelling anyone who learns of the story to pause, to wonder, to fear. For those who feel the chill of unresolved mysteries, Tara's case is a stark reminder. Sometimes the truth is stranger and more unsettling than fiction. Every unaccounted detail, the missing bicycle, the conflicting witness, reports the sudden appearance of the Polaroid hundreds of miles away, creates a puzzle that refuses to be solved. The ambiguity is part of the terror. The unknown is what keeps us awake, questioning, imagining. And it is precisely this tension between fact and folklore, between what is seen and what is felt, that makes the story endure, haunting the collective consciousness. But the story does not exist solely in the past. Every time a new viewer encounters Tara's tale, the highway stretches further into the imagination, the shadows lengthen, and the unanswered questions multiply. What really happened that morning? Who else like the boy in the Polaroid might be caught in circumstances beyond comprehension? Could there be patterns repeating other disappearances yet to be revealed? Artifacts yet to be discovered? These questions remain open, waiting for the curious, the vigilant, and the daring to follow. As a viewer, you are invited into this narrative not as a passive observer, but as a participant in the unfolding enigma. The story challenges perception, evokes fear, and provokes reflection. How do we reconcile the mundane with the inexplicable? How do we respond to shadows at the edge of our awareness? The Highway 47 motif, the Polaroid, and the lingering folklore exist for a reason, to compel inquiry, to test courage, and to remind us that some mysteries are never meant to be fully understood. If you are drawn to the unseen, fascinated by the unexplained, and compelled by the stories that linger long after the evidence is gone, this is the place to continue. Subscribe now to our channel and join us as we explore more unsolved disappearances, chilling artifacts, and the folklore that intertwines with reality. Each new episode unveils a case, a photograph, a legend, each more haunting than the last. By following the series, you ensure that the mysteries, the stories, and the lessons of the past are preserved, examined, and shared. Remember, the unknown does not wait. Highway 47 still stretches under the desert sun, and the shadows continue to move. The next photograph, the next disappearance, the next whisper in the wind, these are waiting to be discovered. Will you witness them? Will you listen? The choice is yours, and the story is far from over. Subscribe, stay with us, and step into the realm where fact, folklore, and fear converge. Tara Calico's disappearance is only one story among many, and the shadows, they are waiting.